Good morning, pre-algebra students. Today we are going to be looking at rates. If you recall from our last few lessons, we've been looking at ratios, which is a comparison of two numbers. So in a rate, it is a very special kind of ratio in which the terms are in different units. So if you think back to the jumper video that we just watched, we could write all of those numbers as a ratio, right? So the comparison of the number of jumps versus the number of seconds. But notice how the jumps and seconds, those are different units. So we would set up that ratio in what we call a rate. So that we would say the number of jumps per second, or the number of jumps per 30 seconds, or per minute. Okay, so we're going to be looking at over here some guided notes, and please do these along with me, of some common types of rates that you might see, and a very specific type of rate, which is called a unit rate. Okay, so to go back to a few of our examples, so here we have a very common type of rate, which is the price of something. So I'm going to go ahead and write that over here. The price. Another type of common rate you're going to see is speed. So I'm going to write that here. Speed. Okay. Oh, and just a reminder, in your math journal, please write that definition. Okay, so a unit rate is a ratio of a quantity to a value of 1 unit. All right, so if you're thinking back to the jumper, we had, she jumped, I don't remember what it was. Let's say it was, let's say, 120 jumps in every 30 seconds. All right, so the units are jumps and seconds, so that those are different units, so that means that this is a rate. If we wanted to find the unit rate, we would figure out how many jumps she was able to do in 1 second. So that's making a comparison to a value of 1 unit, so per 1 unit, or actually let's say seconds, 1 second. Okay, so I want you to think of unit rates and rates in general as just finding equivalent fractions. So if I know that there's 120 jumps per 30 seconds, I can calculate how many per 1 second because I am making the conversion to this equivalent fraction. So if I'm going from 30 to 1, I'm basically dividing that by 30. And whatever I do to my denominator, I also have to do to my numerator. Divide by 30. I'm pretty much dividing by a scale factor of 30. So I'm doing the same thing to the numerator and denominator. So 120 divided by 30, that's going to be 4 jumps. So I could write that her rate was, or her unit rate was 4 jumps per second, for example. I don't think it was exactly 120, but whatever it was, doesn't matter. Okay, so back to our guided notes. Okay, so price. This is a very common unit rate that you are going to see. So a movie theater sells 4 bags of popcorn for $16.50. All right, so we can write that as, in its fractional form, I could write it's going to be $6.50 for every 4 bags. Now, to find the unit rate, I'm trying to figure out how much it is going to cost per 1 bag. So if I've gone from 4 to 1, I'm pretty much decreasing it by a scale factor of 4. So I'm dividing that by 4, which means I need to do the same thing to that numerator. I'm going to divide that by 4. So that gives me, oh, and that's not a nice round number. So that'll give me $4.13 approximately. That's with some rounding. All right, so each bag of popcorn, so per 1 bag, costs $4.13. So that is our unit rate for this popcorn. So prices are often given in unit rates. All right, another common unit rate you're going to see is speed. So it's a distance over time. So in this case, it takes 3.5 hours to travel 140 miles from city A to city B. So here we have city A, and you're traveling, you're going from city B, and it takes you 3.5 hours. So we can go ahead and write the distance, because we know it's distance over time, and I'm going to write that over here. Distance over time, and that's a good thing to learn for your science classes as well. So distance, it was 140 miles. The time, it took them 3.5 hours. So I'm going to find how long it will take them to travel that same, how long it would take them to travel for 1 hour. So I'm going to be going from 3.5 to 1, which means I'm decreasing it by a scale factor of 3.5. So I'm dividing by 3.5. So I'm also going to divide by 3.5 here. Okay, so 140 divided by 3.5. Do a little long division over here. I'm going to get 40. So this 40 over 1 ratio tells me that that person is traveling 40 miles per hour. That is their unit rate. All right, then we have another last example. So 2 gallons of ice cream can make 22 ice cream cones. So I can say 22 gallons, or excuse me, 22 ice cream cones over the number of gallons. Okay, so just be careful. Don't make the mistake I just did. Be careful about what you put where in your ratio. It makes the most sense to put the volume in this amount, in this example, on the bottom, because we want to make that per how much is going to be made per 1 gallon. So to go from 2 to 1, I'm decreasing it by a scale factor of 2. So that means divide by 2. And over here, I'm going to divide by 2. So 22 divided by 2 is going to be 11. So that means there are 11 ice cream cones made per every 1 gallon. So each gallon makes 11 ice cream cones. Okay, so make sure that you glue that into your math journal for your reference. And then I'm going to show you a couple more examples for you to do and what your practice looks like today. All right, so you're going to have a sheet that looks like this. You're going to print it out. It's attached. There's a couple of questions here that you're going to answer, and it says summarize today's lessons at the bottom. You don't have to do that. Don't worry about it. You're just going to complete this. And then the second page, or the back side, looks like this, where you're just completing this table, and then they ask you a question at the bottom. So it says, in order to be promoted, you must beat the following rates in at least 2 categories, and it gives you sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, and then who will be promoted. This part right here, I am going to be asking you that question as your exit ticket. And that exit ticket is going to be in Google Classroom as a quiz, where you're just going to be typing your answer or your response. And that's the only thing that you need to turn in today, is this little portion here. But in order to answer that thoroughly, you need to have done all of that. So let's look at the top of that first page, and we can do it together, because these headings I find are a little bit confusing. So let's just look at that alone. Okay, so here's that cutoff part. That's just this. Okay, so it says, Samuel can do 120 jumping jacks in 2 minutes. Okay, so I would write that as, they're asking me first to write it as a ratio. So I'm just going to put it as 120 jacks for every 2 minutes. Now, I want that as a unit rate, which means the comparison over 1. So not 2 minutes, but every 1 minute. So I'm going to put over 1, and I'm going to make that conversion. So right now it's 120 every 2. So that means that it is going to be 60 per every 1. And then you would write out what that rate is. So 60 jacks per minute. All right, so in the next one, so a large plane is able to cruise at 530 miles per hour. This one's actually already given to us as a unit rate, which is great. So we can just do 530 over 1 as our ratio, make it into a unit rate. It already is a unit rate, so we don't have to do much. And the rate is 530 miles per hour. All right, the last one. So a babysitter gets paid $60 for 4 hours of work. So the ratio is $60 per every 4 hours, and we want it as a unit rate. So that means how much does that person make per 1 hour? So to go from 4 to 1, I'll do my annotation here, divide by 4, divide by 4, and that gives us 15. So that is $15 per hour. So I can put the rate here. Oh, and I want the unit dollars. $15 per hour. All right, that's it for today's lesson. Go ahead and get started on those attachments that I just gave you, or I just mentioned. And yeah, if you have any questions, always shoot me an email. I'll be happy to answer, or you can put it in the question comments below the assignment, and I'll answer it there within Google Classroom, or you can sign up for office hours. All right, have a great day, guys.